After my divorce, the world didn't end all at once. It faded slowly, like a light dimming in a room no one bothered to leave. For the first few days, I kept expecting her to walk back in. To say it was all a mistake. To laugh at how dramatic everything had become. But she didn't. Instead, what I got was silence. A kind of silence that sticks to your skin and follows you from room to room. I stopped using half the house. Stopped cooking properly. Stopped answering calls. Because every conversation ended the same way. Are you okay? And I didn't have an answer to that. 3 weeks passed like that. 3 long weeks where time didn't move forward. It just dragged. That night, the rain came without warning. It started as a whisper against the windows. Then slowly turned into a steady rhythm. I was sitting on the couch pretending to read a book I hadn't turned a page of in over an hour. My mind wasn't in the room. It was stuck somewhere between memories and questions. What went wrong? When did it start? Was there something I missed? Or something I ignored? The doorbell rang. Once. I looked at the clock. 12:03 a.m. No one visits at that hour. The sound echoed through the house louder than it should have. I didn't move. Then it rang again. Longer this time. More insistent. A strange feeling crept in. Not fear exactly, but unease. I stood up slowly. Every step toward the door felt heavier than the last. By the time I reached it, my heart was beating faster than it should have been. I hesitated, then opened it, and everything changed. She was standing there, my ex-wife's sister, Aisha. Her clothes were soaked, rainwater dripping from her hair. Her breathing slightly uneven like she had rushed here without stopping. But it wasn't the rain or the late hour that shocked me. It was her eyes. They were steady, focused, like someone who had already made a decision. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her voice was calm, too calm for someone standing outside at midnight in the rain. I stepped aside automatically. She walked in slowly, looking around the house like it was both familiar and completely different at the same time. Which, I guess, it was. I closed the door behind her. For a moment neither of us spoke. The sound of rain filled the silence. I grabbed a towel from the chair and held it out. "You're soaked." She didn't take it. Instead she turned to face me fully. And that's when she said it. "Marry me." The words didn't register immediately. They just hung in the air between us. Heavy. Unreal. I blinked. "What?" "Marry me," she repeated. Same tone. Same calm certainty. Like she wasn't asking. Like she had already decided. I let out a short breath. A disbelieving laugh escaped before I could stop it. "This isn't funny." "I wasn't trying to be funny," she said. Her eyes didn't waver. That's when I realized. She meant it. A strange mix of confusion and frustration rose inside me. "Do you even hear yourself right now?" She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a step closer. "I know exactly what I'm saying." I shook my head. No, this is not happening." "You're her sister." Was she? The question caught me off guard. What? She tilted her head slightly. Was she really the kind of person who deserved that title? There was bitterness in her voice. Something deeper than just anger. I looked away. "This isn't about that." "Then what is it about?" Her question landed harder than expected. Because I didn't have a clear answer. I ran a hand through my hair. "You should go home. Not until you listen." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. The kind that doesn't leave room for argument. I sighed. "Fine. Say what you came to say." She nodded slightly, then walked further into the room. Like she belonged there. Like she had always belonged there. I stayed where I was. Keeping distance. Or at least, trying to. "You think your marriage ended suddenly," she said. "It didn't." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at me carefully. Like she was choosing her words. "It had been breaking for a long time. You just didn't see it." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. "And you did?" I asked. She nodded. "More than you think." And then she started talking. About late-night conversations. About doubts my ex-wife had never shared with me. About choices she was considering long before things fell apart. Every sentence felt like a crack forming in the version of reality I had been holding onto. "You're lying," I said, but even to my own ears, it didn't sound convincing. She shook her head. "I wish I was." Silence settled again, heavier this time, because now it wasn't just confusion. It was realization. Painful, slow realization. I walked to the window. The rain blurred everything outside. Or maybe it was just my vision. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve the truth." I let out a breath. "And this leads to you showing up at midnight asking me to marry you?" "Yes." I turned back sharply. "That makes no sense." "It does to me." "Of course it does. You're not the one who just got divorced." She stepped closer again. "No. I'm the one who watched you fall apart while pretending you were fine." Her words hit harder than I expected. Because they were true. I looked away. "That doesn't mean you can just. I've loved you for years." The sentence cut through everything. Clean. Direct. Impossible to ignore. I froze. What? She didn't repeat it. She didn't need to. It was already there. Between us. Loud enough. "You can't say that. I already did. This is wrong." "Maybe." Her voice softened. "But that doesn't make it untrue." I took a step back. Trying to create space. Trying to think. Trying to breathe. But my thoughts weren't cooperating. Because deep down, there had been moments. Small ones. Insignificant at the time. Or at least that's what I told myself. Moments where conversations with her felt easier. Where her presence lingered just a little longer than it should have. I had ignored all of it. Locked it away. Because there are lines you don't cross. And she was one of those lines. Until now. She studied my face. "You feel it too." It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know how. Or maybe I did, and I was just afraid to say it out loud. "That's why I came tonight," she said. "Before I lose the chance." Chance for what? For us. The word felt dangerous. Unstable. Like stepping onto something that might collapse under weight. "There is no us," I said quickly. Too quickly. She didn't react. Didn't argue. Just waited. And somehow that made it harder. Because there was no pressure. No force. Just quiet certainty. And I didn't know what to do with that. The rain outside began to slow. Droplets replacing the heavy downpour. Time felt strange. Like it had stretched too far and might snap at any moment. I looked at her again. Really looked this time. Not as my ex-wife's sister. But as someone standing in front of me. Asking for something real. Something risky. Something that could change everything. Or destroy what little was left. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. "Neither do I." "Then why?" "Because some things are worth not knowing." Her answer lingered. Uncomfortable. Honest. I turned away again. Running out of arguments. Running out of certainty. "What happens if we do this?" The question came out before I could stop it. She smiled faintly. Not happy. Not relieved. Just hopeful. "We find out." And somehow, that answer scared me more than anything she had said all night. Because it meant there were no guarantees. No safety. Just a step into something unknown. And once you take that step, there's no going back. The clock ticked somewhere in the house, marking a moment that would matter more than I realized. Because that night wasn't just about a question. It was about a choice. And I hadn't made it yet. But I knew, deep down, that I was going to. And whatever I chose, nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't give her an answer that night. Not a yes. Not a no. Just silence. And sometimes silence says more than words ever can. She didn't push. That was the strange part. Anyone else would have demanded something. A reaction. A decision. But not her. She just looked at me for a long moment. As if trying to memorize something. Then she picked up the towel I had offered earlier. Dried her hands slowly. And said, "I'll come back tomorrow." Like it was already decided. Before I could respond, she walked to the door. Paused. Without turning around, she added, Don't overthink it. You already know. And then she left. The door closed. And just like that, I was alone again. But not the same kind of alone. This time the silence wasn't empty. It was loud, filled with questions I couldn't escape. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing there. Heard those words again. Marry me. By morning, my head felt heavy. Like I had lived through something much longer than a single night. I made coffee. Didn't drink it. Just let it sit there getting cold. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. But I already knew who it was. I meant what I said. No emojis. No hesitation. Just clarity. I stared at the screen. Typing a reply. Deleting it. Typing again. Nothing felt right. Because there was no right response to something like this. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. Not midnight this time. Not dramatic. Just normal. And somehow that made it more real. I opened it, and there she was again. This time dry, composed, like the storm from last night had never happened. Can I come in? She asked. Again, and again, I stepped aside. We stood in the living room. Same place. Different tension. Have you thought about it? She asked. I exhaled slowly. That's all I've been doing. And I don't understand you. She nodded. Fair. Then let me make it simpler. She stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. I'm not asking you to forget anything. I'm not asking you to replace her. I'm asking you to stop pretending that what's between us doesn't exist. I frowned. You keep saying that like it's obvious. Because it is. Her confidence was unsettling. How can you be so sure? Because I've seen the way you look at me. I opened my mouth to deny it. But again, no words came out. Because she wasn't entirely wrong. And that was the problem. You're confusing things, I said. Emotions are messy. Especially after something like a divorce. This isn't real. She shook her head. No. What you had before wasn't real. That's why it broke. This. She paused. This has been real for a long time. You just never allowed yourself to see it. Her words were dangerous. Not because they were loud. But because they were quiet and convincing. I turned away, running both hands through my hair. This could ruin everything. What exactly is left to ruin? She asked calmly. That question hit harder than anything else. Because she was right. There wasn't much left. My marriage was over. My home didn't feel like home. Even the people around me had started to feel distant. Still, this is different, I said. This is complicated. It will always be complicated. But complicated doesn't mean wrong. Silence again. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. She's getting married. I turned around sharply. What? Next month. The words felt like a punch. That fast. She nodded. You didn't know. No. Of course I didn't. A strange mix of anger and disbelief rose inside me. 3 weeks. 3 weeks and she had already moved on. Or maybe, she had moved on long before. That realization settled heavily. And suddenly, something inside me shifted. Not completely, but enough. You see now, she said softly. She didn't wait. She didn't look back. Why are you? Her sentence hung unfinished. But I understood it. Why was I still holding on to something that was already gone? I sat down. The weight of everything catching up at once. This isn't how I imagined my life going. No one's life goes the way they imagine. She sat across from me. But sometimes it goes the way it's meant to. I let out a dry laugh. You really believe that? I do. Because I'm here. Despite everything. Despite how wrong this looks. Despite what people will say. I'm still here. Her words were steady, unshaken. And for the first time, I started to see something beyond the chaos. Not clarity, but possibility. And that scared me. Because possibility means risk. It means stepping into something you can't control. What about your family? I asked. What about them? They'll never accept this. Maybe not. She shrugged slightly. But I'm not living my life for their approval. And you shouldn't either. Easy for you to say. Not really. I've been fighting this for years. Alone. Her voice softened. You just started last night. That stayed with me. Because it meant, for her, this wasn't sudden. This wasn't impulsive. This was something she had carried quietly for a long time. And now, it had reached a point where she couldn't ignore it anymore. I looked at her again. And for the first time, I didn't see my ex-wife's sister. I saw someone who had chosen me. Deliberately. Despite everything. And that kind of choice is hard to ignore. What if this is a mistake? I said quietly. Then we make it together. Her answer came without hesitation. And fix it together. Or regret it together. But at least it will be ours. Not something decided by fear. That line broke something inside me. Because she was right. Every decision I had made recently was driven by fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of being wrong. Fear of making things worse. And where had that gotten me? Nowhere. Just stuck. I leaned back, closing my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, she was still there. Still waiting. Still certain. I took a deep breath. If we do this, there's no going back. I know. People will talk. I know. It could get ugly. I know. Then why are you so calm? Because I already chose. Now it's your turn. The room fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was expectant. Like everything had led to this moment. And there was no more delaying it. I looked at her. Really looked. At the determination. At the honesty. At the risk she was willing to take. And slowly, carefully, I said, okay. The word felt small. But it carried everything. Her expression didn't change immediately. Like she needed a second to process it. Then, very slightly, she smiled. Not wide. Not dramatic. Just real. Are you sure? She asked. No, I admitted. But I'm willing. And that was enough. Because sometimes, willingness is more important than certainty. She stood up. So did I. For a moment, we just stood there. Close. Not touching. But closer than we had ever been before. This changes everything, I said. Yes, she replied. It does. And for the first time since the divorce, I didn't feel stuck. I felt like something had started. Something uncertain, complicated, risky, but real. What we didn't know yet was how hard the next part would be. Because choices are easy. It's the consequences that test you and ours. We're just beginning. The moment we said yes, everything changed. Not immediately, not visibly, but underneath everything, like the ground shifting before an earthquake. The first few days felt unreal. We didn't tell anyone, not yet. It was like we were standing inside a secret, one that was too fragile to expose. We met quietly, spoke carefully, as if saying things out loud might break whatever this was. But reality doesn't stay quiet for long. It started with a phone call. From my mother. Her voice was hesitant, like she was choosing her words. I heard something. My chest tightened. What? A long pause. About you. And her. She didn't say the name. She didn't have to. Rumors travel fast. Faster than truth. It's not what you think, I said quickly. But even as I said it, I knew how weak it sounded. Then tell me what it is. I couldn't. Not fully. Not in a way that would make sense. So I said the simplest version. We're trying. Silence. Heavy. Disappointed. Then she said something that stayed with me. This will destroy what little piece is left. And then she hung up. That was just the beginning. Within days, everyone knew. Family, friends, even people who had no right to know. And the reactions were exactly what we expected. And worse, my phone didn't stop ringing. Messages. Angry. Confused. Judging. How could you? What were you thinking? Of all people, I stopped replying. Because there was no answer that would satisfy anyone. But the hardest part was facing her, my ex-wife, It happened sooner than I expected. She showed up unannounced, just like her sister had. But this time, there was no rain, no hesitation, just anger, raw, unfiltered. She walked into the house like she still owned it. Her eyes locked on me. Is it true? I didn't pretend not to understand. Yes, that was all I said. And it was enough. Her expression changed instantly, from anger to something sharper. Betrayal. Of course it's true, she said bitterly. I should have known. Known what? That you'd do something like this. I let out a slow breath. You moved on. You're getting married. That's different. How? She laughed. A cold, humorless laugh. Because she's my sister. The word echoed, like it carried more weight than anything else. And maybe it did, but I didn't step back. And you were my wife. Silence. Tense. Explosive. Then she said it. Did you love her before? The question cut deep. Because it wasn't simple, I didn't answer immediately. And that hesitation said everything. Her face hardened. I knew it. I knew something was always off. That's not true. But even I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe something had always been there. Something unnoticed. Or ignored. She shook her head. Disgust clear in her eyes. You don't even realize what you've done. I met her gaze. Maybe I do. Maybe I'm just not running from it anymore. That made her angrier. Because people can accept betrayal. But they struggle to accept honesty after it. You've ruined everything, she said. No, I replied quietly. It was already ruined. That's why we're here. That was the moment something broke completely. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just. Finally. She stared at me for a long time. Then turned. And walked out. Just like she had 3 weeks ago. But this time, it felt different. Because this time, I didn't feel like I had lost something. I felt like I had let go. But letting go doesn't mean things get easier. The real storm came after. Her family turned against us completely. Calls stopped. Invitations disappeared. Doors closed. And not metaphorically. Literally. We weren't welcome anywhere. Not together. Not separately. Even people who used to support me stepped back. Because this situation was too complicated to stand beside. And through all of it, she stayed. That was the only constant. She didn't break. Didn't doubt. Didn't run. Even when things got ugly. Even when words turned cruel. Even when the weight of everything became too much. One night, weeks later, I found her sitting, alone, quiet, still. For the first time, she didn't look strong. She looked tired. I sat beside her. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then she said softly, "Do you regret it?" The question hung in the air. Honest, vulnerable, dangerous. I thought about everything. The chaos, the judgment, the loss. And then I looked at her. Really looked. At the person who had chosen me. And stayed. When everything became difficult. No, I said. I don't. She nodded slowly. But I could see it. The doubt. The exhaustion. Even the strongest people reach a point where everything feels too heavy. We can stop if you want, I added. The words surprised even me. She turned to me. What? If this is too much? If it's hurting you, we don't have to keep going. Silence. Then, for the first time, her eyes filled with tears. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, real. You still don't understand, she said. Understand what? I didn't come to you that night because it was easy. I came because it was impossible. And I still chose it. Her voice trembled slightly. I'm not here because it's simple. I'm here because it's you. That was the moment everything became clear. Not the situation, not the future, but the feeling. And sometimes, that's enough. I reached for her hand. This time, she didn't hesitate. Months passed, slowly, painfully, but steadily. People didn't suddenly accept us. Some never did, but the noise got quieter, and life, in its strange way, started to move forward again. Not the life I had planned. Not the one I expected. but one I had chosen. And that made all the difference. One evening, we stood on the balcony, watching the city lights, the same city that had judged us, questioned us, turned us into something people whispered about. She leaned slightly against me, comfortable, certain. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Midnight, rain, the beginning of everything." I smiled faintly. "Every day." She looked up at me. "Any regrets now?" I shook my head. "No." She smiled. "Then it was worth it." I looked at her, at everything we had gone through, everything we had risked, and everything we had built despite it. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It was." And for the first time, the silence around us didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful, like something had finally settled. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Because sometimes, the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most real endings. And ours started at midnight, with a knock on the door, and a question that changed everything.